Good morning, Nigeria. Welcome to Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. My name is Ayuba Ilya, and we welcome you especially to today's edition of Daybreak. Of course, I'm not alone in the studio. Good morning, Stella.
Good morning, Ayuba, and it's indeed a beautiful morning. Good morning, Nigerians, and thank you for joining us. My name is Stella Iyaji.
Yes, here we bring you perspectives and analysis on all the issues of concern in the country and keep you updated on all the things that you need to know as you run through the day. Now, let's begin with the headlines. School fence collapses on children playing in Lagos community.
Amid parents' ordeal, Ekwerimado's daughter begs public for kidney.
Royal Cottage. King Charles III leads procession behind Queen's hearse.
Now let's take a look at the details. Sonia, the daughter of Ike Ekweremadu, Nigeria's former deputy Senate president, has made a public appeal for kidney donation. The lawmaker's daughter made the appeal amid the ordeal of her parents, who landed in trouble in the quest to save her. In an Instagram post on Monday, Sonia, who is based in the UK, asked members of the public to assist her. Ekweremadu and his wife were arrested in June when they tried to get a kidney donor for Sonia, who is in her mid-20s. Prosecutors had arraigned the couple in court over alleged trafficking and attempt to harvest the organs of an underage. Beatrice, the lawmaker's wife, was later granted bail, while he is currently in custody, pending October when his case will be heard.
Now, at least 2 children were killed when the fence of a school collapsed on them in Amokoko area of Lagos State. The fence of Covenant Point Academy, located along Ajose Close in Amokoko, collapsed on the children while they were playing on Sunday. One of the victims was said to have died instantly, while the other died moments later. Spokesperson of the Lagos State Police Command, Benjamin Hundeyin, confirmed the incident, describing it as unfortunate. Hundeyin said that 2 suspects had been arrested in connection with the incident.
Now, King Charles III flew into Edinburgh, the capital of Scotland, on Monday to lead a royal procession behind the coffin of his mother up the narrow cobble street of Edinburgh's Royal Mile to St. Giles Cathedral. The body of Britain's late longest-serving monarch traveled through the heart of Edinburgh, escorted by ceremonial bodyguards brandishing long bows as cannons boomed in the background. The grand spectacle played out in the Scottish capital rather than London because Queen Elizabeth II passed on last week at Balmoral Castle. The body will lie in state at St. Giles Cathedral until Wednesday, when it will be airlifted to London. King Charles III also made his first visit to Parliament as monarch, with MPs and peers offering their condolences to him and the Queen consort. In his reply to the lawmakers, the king said connections to his darling late mother were all around Parliament, which he described as the living and breathing instrument of the nation's democracy.
All right, now let's take a look at some packages this morning. Mobile phone repairs is one of the viable business in the communication industry that provides job opportunities for thousands of Nigerians. Now, while many are phone repairers, in Gombe State, a 15-year-old student is advancing a career in phone wrapping for self-reliance. Let's take a look.
It is a busy work day for the 15-year-old Jafar Muhammad, a Gombe-based young boy aspiring to advance his business to higher level through phone wrapping. Jafar, who is a student of JSS 3, said he does not want to depend solely on his parents to solve his personal problems. Hence, he started doing business of covering mobile phones with transparent polythene. I am wrapping phones for self-reliance. If you need anything, you don't have to ask your father or anyone. You can cater for yourself. He said he is now making little profits from the business and feels good to be self-sufficient in a way. I make 200 naira daily. I used to give my mother 50 naira, spend 50 naira and save 100 naira. I want to be a businessman. If I grow up, I want to be famous in the world. Self-sufficiency among youth is important as it builds confidence and makes them strong and independent. For Jafar, being self-reliant is another achievement or milestone reached. He hopes to build a business that can offer other young boys like him opportunities. From Gombe, Ibrahim Ismail reporting for Trust TV.
Thank you, Ibrahim Ismail, for that report. Now, Monday, September 12th, was the reopening day for most primary and post-primary schools in Benue State. In Makurdi, the state capital, our reporter spoke with parents, teachers, and students who expressed mixed feelings in the face of rising inflation as the new academic session begins. Let's take the report.
September always ushers in a new academic session. With it come new financial challenges as pupils who move to upper classes need new set of books and other accessories. With the present increase in prices of goods and services, the education sector is not spared, as parents confirmed.
But in Benue State, as I'm talking now, it's merely a civil servant state, and workers have not been paid.
It's just finance. We want to register these children for the educational distance, better. The finance is the major problem.
There are things to buy for them. The new students, you buy uniform, shoes, that is their sandals and the textbooks and the materials. And where is the resources?
You have to wake up in the morning to prepare the breakfast and the lunch, and you have to drop the kids in school before you go to your own work. So, but as a parent, what do? We must do.
For teachers and school administrators, they expect delayed resumption as well as inconsistent fee payment due to the hard economic realities in the state.
It has not been easy, and some of them still have the belief that school, when they resume, things don't start on time, which is not correct, and for that they have not really been able to allow their words to come, and some of them are not prepared, even though they are still long at home, at least for a whole month, yet they are still not prepared financially to send their children to school, so it has been seriously challenging on their part.
Hard times have actually affected the resumption of students in school because this is first term. The children have enjoyed a long holiday and would be willing to come back, but because of the economic crunch.
For students, they are happy to return to school after the long holiday.
School is everything. Like, I'm tired of staying at home. I want to come to school and learn because there are lots of things to learn in a new class like this. There are lots of things to learn. So the happiness of being in a new class altogether makes me want to be in school.
I'm happy to resume because the learning can continue, and I'm happy with the development of the school and the teachings the school have been providing for us.
With most households depending on private schools for education due to lack of investment in public schools by the government, the education of young Nigerians is now more challenging as private operators who are striving to stay in business continue to increase fees. This is in addition to the insecurity in some places that has worsened the situation with a disturbing number of kids leaving school due to terrorist attacks.
All right, now in a similar vein, across the Federal Capital Territory, schools are resuming as well, and after the long holiday, parents are appealing to school authorities to provide adequate security and also be considerate with tuition and other fees due to the economic situation in the country. Our reporter Aisha Salihu has more on this.
It's the first day of school, and pupils are excited to be back for the new academic session after the long holiday. Prior to the long holiday, schools were abruptly shut down in the Federal Capital Territory due to security concerns. As a prelude to that, parents who are still entertaining fear, however, called on the authorities to ensure the safety of their wards as well as the impartation of quality education.
There's nothing different between when they close the school and what is happening now. Is the FCC safe now? It's not safe. But we cannot keep our children there in the house for longer. Like now, the ASU is on strike. It's affecting the family, it's affecting the parents, it's affecting everybody. It's even affecting the children. So if we should keep the children, the secondary school children and primary school at home now, when are they going to go back to school?
The children find it difficult the last time to take their exams and all the rest. The exam that need to carry on for 1 week, they wrote it within 2 days interval. We are still praying, looking forward for our government to improve for the security for the children.
Acknowledging the harsh economic realities, these parents say they struggle to pay tuition fees and other learning materials, and appealed for a flexible payment plan that would be comfortable for both parties.
Every payment is from the parents. When we, as I am now, I went for verification and I was given the list for new intake. It's not easy for me as a parent. It's not easy at all because as I am now, I have like 4 kids. It's not easy for me. To me, I would say the federal government should help the parents. At least they should not increase the payment from the school. Let the payment, let it be stable or a little bit lesser.
We do the one we can do. Privates are better, but it's more expensive that most parents cannot afford. So, but some parents doesn't mind to give their children the best. They can wear anything to make sure that their children go to private school. They are pushing government aside.
The debate about the preservation of the quality of education in public schools continues to give rise to the enrollment of more pupils in private schools, with parents bearing the brunt of that choice vis-a-vis the cost of private education. Aisha Salihu, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Thank you, Aisha, for that report. Ayuba, it doesn't look like a good time for parents at all.
I mean,
they are lamenting insecurity, they are lamenting cost of books, even hiking school fees.
If you listen to a lot of people, either on social media, on radio, I've been following conversations, and a lot of people don't seem to be happy, especially if you look at, the inflation, and also on the part of the schools now, increasing school fees. Some are having to change school for their children, actually. I've heard a story of someone who said, look, he's paying 400,000 naira for a child, in a school. And so,
imagine if he has 3 or 4.
Exactly. So it will be running into millions of naira for one session. So what would you be paying for that child when the child gets to the university, if you are paying that high at this level? It's so bad that even in, at the nursery level, you have children paying as much as 200,000.
I've seen a nursery school that charges 350 per child. And I was just wondering, what do they teach from nursery school? What is this guy learning at
the same nursery school we went to?
Yeah.
What is it? Is it the music classes or is it the phonetic classes?
Yes, and some of the school proprietors, they come up with all sorts. They say, like you said, phonetics classes. And, for instance, these days, have you seen the fact that you're schooling in Nigeria, but they teach you how to speak like you're living abroad, and I don't understand that. If you're schooling here, you should speak like you're Nigerian, and
that
doesn't affect the quality of English.
But you have parents who are enrolling their children into learning some of these things. It's some kind of a big deal for some parents. It's like, oh, I want my child to speak like an American or to speak like a British. He wants him to speak the Queen's English. That's what I mean. Nothing wrong in speaking the Queen's English. After all, that's the official language in Nigeria, right? But I mean, going extra now to begin to learn accent.
That's the problem. It's not about speaking the English language, as it were. But why do you have to learn accent? That's different, right?
Exactly. So I don't know. It's just some of the ways that private schools have come up with things, to charge higher, for school fees and the rest of them. But it's not for many parents. They are not smiling about this.
They are not smiling at all.
And I think that I don't know. Both parents, school owners, and maybe the government should actually look at this and see what are the ways that we can make this thing affordable. I mean, education should be free after all.
It should be.
But
should be.
Since we don't have it free, we shouldn't have to pay through our noses.
It should be affordable.
Exactly.
And you know, when talking about security in the Daily Trust report, I noticed that the FCT command, the FCTA, actually increased the salaries of security guards in schools.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
I mean,
a
that's
good one, because these
you know.
are the times. I mean, the times that we are in calls for that. Some of them are paid peanuts usually, you know, and that's not looking good at all. You could have situations where security guards are conniving with criminals.
Of course, and I felt that this kind of thing could propel them to do their work better.
Yes, and we hope to see more of that. And then also we hope to see that teachers are paid more as well.
Of course.
Because sometimes when you hear the ridiculous amount that some school teachers are being paid, and again, on the flip side, the schools are charging parents higher for school fees, but then the teachers are not well paid.
Peanuts,
So it doesn't add up. It's something that needs to be looked into. Really.
Yeah, away from the schools now, let's take another report. Now, the Controller General of the Nigeria Correctional Services has given assurances that in spite of security challenges across the country, inmates in all facilities remain optimally secure. The Controller General's assurances came as he promoted over 1,000 men and officers to their next ranks, mostly from deputy superintendents to deputy controllers of correctional services. In Katsina, Abdullah Yamadi reports that 42 men and officers of the Nigeria Correctional Services were decorated with their new ranks. Let's take the reports.
These promoted officers are being urged to show more dedication in confronting contemporary issues undermining the service. The Katsina State Controller Abdulmumini Haruna is reminding officers that their primary responsibility is premised on modesty and respect for the fundamental human rights of inmates.
Which means when we thought before we had 1 star and now we have 2 stars, we know something has increased. It is not only the joy, but even the job. So let us empty our mind and see that we commit ourselves, we offer relentless service, we offer service worthy of being credited as hardworking, diligent, and honest. And by this, God willing, will prefer more and more.
The officers have also been urged to ensure professionalism and general welfare of inmates to reciprocate the promotions which were based on merit. In spite of all challenges bedeviling Katsina State, the Correctional Service Boss is assuring citizens of maximum security of inmates at all their facilities across the state.
Saves 9. To be forewarned is to be forearmed. Let's forearm ourselves and see that we are ready for this CBT test, so that as we have now prospered, God willing, even in our next promotions, will prosper. I wish to pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is omnipotent and omniscient, has awarded this promotion to us, will guide us, will help us see that we discharge our duties, we discharge our work as it should be done, as it should be worked.
The promoted officers who appeared with their families, friends and well-wishers promised to remain committed to the service as a way of showing their appreciation. They are also pledging to work assiduously with sister organizations to ensure safety of lives and general welfare of all inmates. Abdullahi Ismayamadi, Trust Television News, Katsina.
Well, congratulations to the newly promoted. Now, let's take a look at political stories. Presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, human rights lawyer Femi Falana, and Labour leaders want Nigeria's government to unmask those behind the monumental oil stealing in the country. They made the demand on the sidelines of a 2-day retreat organized by the Labour Party in Abuja, the nation's capital.
Speaking on the economics of the growing revenue leakages in the oil and gas sector, which is changing the citizens of enormous resources, presidential candidate of the Labour Party Peter Obi says if properly utilized, such can address the lingering ASU strike in just 1 day.
Oil on the average sold in July, you can use an average of 110 I've said it everywhere. Multiply with that number, you have $2,445,000,000.
Speaking on the same trajectory, a former human rights lawyer, Femi Falana, says it is inconceivable that the federal government lacks knowledge of how the oil resources is being illegally shipped out of the country.
And we're happy now the Comptroller General of Customs has come up publicly to say that it is impossible to smuggle daily about 38 million liters of fuel. Where would they pass? Because you need tankers, and you will need at least 500 tankers loading 33,000 liters of fuel per one.
President of the Nigeria Labour Congress NLC Ayuba Waba suggested the need to utilize illegal operators in the oil fields to instead contribute to the nation's refining capacity as means of addressing the challenge.
That Nigeria, despite being the sixth largest oil producer in the world, that we cannot refine petroleum products for more than 3 decades. What do? We export crude oil and half of it even stolen. And in turn, we go back to buy refined products. And we don't complain that things are not working.
The 2-day retreat of the Labour Party is aimed at reactivating its nationwide structures to mobilize support for those contesting various elective offices under its platform. Shafiu Suleiman, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Thank you, Shafiu Suleiman, for that report. With that, we'll call for a short break now. When we return, the show continues. Please stay.
As the 2023 elections draw near, remember, evil prospers when good men and women only wish for peace, but never take a step to make peaceful elections happen. Are you a father? Are you a mother? What are you saying to your children as elections approach? Have you warned them not to let themselves be used to cause violence? Have you explained to them what the consequences of electoral violence might be? Do your part to make peaceful elections happen. Talk to your children. Protect them from unscrupulous politicians who want to put them in harm's way, while their own children are comfortable at home, within and outside the country. Let's join hands to make 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NOAA.
situation where you find that a person look at the same.
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
But I have said that.
All right, thank you for staying. You're watching Daybreak on Trust Television. Now, time for us to take a look at the dailies on Daybreak, and we have quite a number of papers to look at. So we'll begin with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. The lead story there says, aviation workers shut airports over new law. It has the riders that says, insist banning union activities illegal. Issue 14-day strike notice, passengers stranded. Minister denies smuggling in new clauses. You also have, just above the lead story, Daily Trust invites nominations for African of the Year 2022 award on page 6. You would find all the details there. The Daily Trust is in search of the man or the woman that will qualify for that. Now, you also have parents cautious as schools resume in states on page 33. 2 swept away, 9 rescued as flooding hits Niger and Ekiti as well as Lagos State. And then you would find also beside the pictorial, FG ASU, court adjourns hearing to September 16. You also find concerns over non-assent to Nigerian startup bill. I attempted killing my dad 3 times to inherit his money, says son. You'd also find at a footnote, Obi to Tinubu, presidency not turn by turn. The writer says, we will activate our structures in 774 local government areas for Obi. That's according to the NLC president, Nigerian Labour Congress, that is. We have golden opportunity to address challenges, LP chair says. You have also the pictorial there showing you Controller General of Nigeria Immigration Service, Isa Jere Idris, with the Chief of Defense Staff, General Lucky Rabo, after their strategic meeting bordering on security matters at the Defense Headquarters in Abuja. Let's not forget those still in captivity. 11 schoolgirls of FGC Birnin Yauri, 453 days still in captivity. 1 student of Bethel Baptist High School, Kujama, 426 days still in captivity. We hope that they will be released as soon as possible.
All right, let's take a look at the Leadership newspaper. The Leadership newspaper has a lead story that says, in final push for reconciliation, PDP leaders move to pacify Wike others. We also have the story here that says, MRA asks NBC to disclose license fees payment, station's debt. Right beneath that, Soludo Obi, Uba Ekwinife, others condemn attack on Ifeanyi Uba. 2023, vote competence, not same faith ticket, Gumi tells Nigerians. Also, still on the airport issue, we have the story here. Passengers stranded at airports as unions protest anti-labor bill. And right above the masthead, we have INEC delays 1.1 million voters over double registration ineligibility. Aquarimado's daughter says father diagnosed with acute kidney damage begs for donor. These are the major stories on the Leadership newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at the next paper now. We are looking at the Daily Times. And on the Daily Times, we have the lead story. It says, I won't offer excuses as president, says Obi. You also would find other stories there at the very top above the masthead. Strike, court adjourns suit between FG ASU to September 16th. You would also find other stories there, how NNPCL loses $700 million monthly to oil theft. And then you also have INEC invites observers from international community. Same faith ticket. I'm also worried as a Christian, says Akeredolu, talking about Ondo State Governor. That's that for the Daily Times.
Let's look at the Punch newspaper. The Punch newspaper has a lead story that says, boundary disputes worsen insecurity, 676 killed in states. The first writer says 444 houses razed in communal clashes in Ebonyi, Kogi, Cross River, others. Federal government addressing 86 cases. Security experts, lawyers blame governors. Also, we have, there's a pictorial here that shows flooding in Lagos. It's captioned, Lagos flooding, rescuers recover 2 corpses, save 9. We also have a story here that says, federal government begins tax recovery from 2,000 mining firms. Akeredolu apologizes to clerics over Muslim ticket. We also have another story here. Passport issuance rises by 38%. More Nigerians relocate. 5 killed in Ifan Yoruba's convoy attack. And just beneath the pictorial, we have Labour Act. Aviation workers issue 14-day ultimatum. Gridlock traps Lagos-Ibadan motorists, passengers for 16 hours. Then we also have another story here. Strikes, students to barricade expressway, carpet in Ngige, Adamu. These are the major stories on the Punch.
All right, so let's take a look at this day newspaper this morning. The lead story there says, The Economist, Nigeria missing out on rare global oil boom opportunity. You'd also find above the masthead, FG eyes $4 billion annually from cashew exports. Other stories there, you would find Nigeria had special place in Queen Elizabeth's heart, says Lang. And also Buhari, despite our challenges, other nations still believe in Nigeria's potential. You would have the writer that says President Tinubu chair Fayemi on elections as Africa's region's leader. I think that's about the major stories on this day newspaper this morning.
All right, let's take a look at the Blueprint newspaper. The Blueprint newspaper has a late story that says, Keyamoto Obi critics. Tinubu's trunk fit for presidential campaigns. The first writer says, accuses Labour Party candidate of plotting fake assassination attempt. We also have another story here that says, NAF airstrikes destroy terrorist hospital in Sambisa, kills cause in Borno, Katsina. And then there's also this story here, just beneath the Victoria. INEC invites EU, UN, Commonwealth, AU, ECOWAS observers. That's for the 2023 elections. These are the major stories on the Blueprint for today.
All right, so let's get perspectives on these stories this morning. We have Mukhtar Suleiman in the studio, public affairs analyst, to give us perspectives on some of the stories. Thank you for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Good morning. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Well, quite interesting this morning. A lot of conversations, though we didn't see the usual similarities that we will see across all the papers. Everyone is, having his own,
doing his own thing.
When I was in school, they say no news day is a bad day.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Right?
It looks like it's a good thing. Slow and steady is actually good sometimes.
Yeah, but there's one that is of concern to many parents. Earlier on, we saw some stories, some reports about school resumption, and we've had to receive reports from various states, and it doesn't look like parents are excited this time around. There's a story here on the front page of Daily Trust that says parents cautious as schools resume in states. So there's a reason for that. What's your perspectives on, what's changing really?
You absolutely can't blame them really, because we saw how the schools shut down in the first place in Abuja, particularly. after the FGC Kwali incident that happened. And then instead of a swift, decisive, and clear attack, what did we do? We went into hiding. Shut down all the schools, everybody should go home. And they did that in a few days. But the federal government has not come out to say, oh, this is the guarantee we are giving you. These are the security infrastructures we've put in place to ensure that your children are going to be safe when they return back to school. It's just been radio silence ever since. And now schools are resuming, and we're just expected to just forget that this was what happened when we shut down in the first place. So concerns are valid. I don't want to have to pay ransom for my children just simply because I want to send them to school. I should be able to say I'm sending my children to school, and they should feel safe where they go, wherever it is they went to school. I can tell you categorically, when I went to school, secondary school, I did my secondary school in Mina. My parents live in Warri, Delta State, and every now and then I come to Abuja for my holidays. The only twice my parents came to school or followed me to school was the day they went to drop me off, and the day I did my personal parade when they came to pick me back. That was the only 2 times they were. So I was always going alone, and it felt safe. There were even times I would leave Abuja by 6 p.m. In the evening to go back to Mina. And it didn't feel like I wasn't looking forward to it.
It seems like a lot of people have the same story. Myself have the same story. I mean, the only time, it was just 2 times you talked about. The first day you were dropped, and then the last day that you'll be leaving, and all that. But that cannot be said as of now. That cannot be said of, parents right now, because of so much that has changed, especially if you look at the issue of security and the rest, which you have highlighted. But again, on in another perspective, again, the issue of school fees by private schools. That's also something that, some consider alarming. There seems to be some kind of increase. Parents are considering changing schools for their children, and the rest of them.
I think one of the things, the demographic I feel the most pity for is the ASU, the lecturers who have been at home for over 6 months now. No salary for that time, and they also have to send their children to school as well. It is sad and it is pathetic, because now how are they going to navigate through the entire system? And then the average Nigerian himself or herself, whose business has been thwarted by some of the issues that are actually happening in the country. If it is not the naira taking a dive to the dollar in the international market, it's going to be that your boss cut your salary by so and so because because of the economic turmoil, or it is going to be, it's just too many dynamics coming together, looking for a way to kill you as a person. It's almost as if every day Nigeria finds new and innovate, like 76 new and innovative ways to kill you. It doesn't repeat anyone every day. It's just weird.
The thing is, apart from the hike in school fees, especially with the private schools, there's hike in the cost of books, uniforms, and all of that. And the thing is, there are some parents who feel, okay, we've had cases, at least I read about some cases where the parents feel, okay, the cost of the uniform by the school is high. Why don't I get the materials, give it to my tailor, and then he makes it cheaper? But a particular woman did that, and the school rejected that uniform. They said that it had to be from the school. What do you say to that?
Right from since time, we knew that school uniforms, books are used as a technique to generate income for the schools as well, extra income for the schools as well. Why? I don't know, because I'm paying you school fees already. I have a few of my siblings that live off me for school fees and the rest of it, and one of them is resuming school as well this term. And I would recall that I called the school. They're not here, they're in Delta State, and I called the school. I'm hearing that you're insistent that I have to pay, I have to buy textbooks from you. They said, yes, that's the school policy. I said, well, you need to send me the written policy. I think that was what killed that matter. I said, send it to me, the written policy, when it was written, everything, because you can't just be telling me that's the school policy when it's a verbal term. That doesn't make sense. You're talking to an educated person for a change, I think.
And in any case, those books they're talking about, it's possible that her older sister used the same books and they're available in the house for her to use, right?
It is just weird that the fact that you have to
some will reject the old ones.
Yes.
It's just weird that you have to insist that they have to buy new books and they have to buy it from you. If it's not from you, they cannot get it from anywhere else there. When I'm paying you for your service, I'm already paying you for the service that you're providing, which it comes in forms of the tuition that I'm going to pay at the beginning of the term, which if I don't pay, you don't let my child into the school. But then the extra miscellaneous cost where I'm supposed to be able to find a way to bypass and then see how they can actually, you are telling me that you're insisting and then you give me a verbal, that is the school policy. Well, send me the written policy at the end of the day. I'm just saying that to everybody.
So
out there.
are parents
Request
helpless now? You know, that's the thing that we're looking at. Are parents helpless? Because sometimes you hear things like, oh, well, if you are not comfortable with the way we run things, maybe you should consider taking your child elsewhere. And it doesn't look like elsewhere is any better as well.
I would sue you, because the thing is, if when I'm bringing my child into the school, you do not tell me from the beginning, when you were giving me all the documents that I needed to sign and everything, it is not there in the document that I signed that I must buy textbooks from you every time. I must buy uniforms from you every time. You do not make that very clear to me. And then you come and give me a verbal thing and tell me that's how you run your school. I'll sue you for every penny you don't have. That's just the honest truth. Because it's not fair. It is an exploitative method. We cannot say that the government is a problem and then we'll also contribute in our own unique, dynamic way to. Then when it favors us, it's okay, but when it doesn't, then it's corruption or something.
Do we have any policy, though, that regulates some of these things? Maybe a government policy that says, okay, private schools, this is how you do it, this is how you do it. Do we have anything like that?
I've never believed Nigeria is not short of laws. I don't know if we do have. Honestly, I don't know. But even if it's somewhere just receiving dust. Because one thing I have learned in this country is that we are not short of laws. We have laws. Just implementation is usually where the problem is. So maybe that should be a new research I should actually do to see. Thank you so much for telling me that.
And even if there are no laws, if parents come together and resist some of these demands, don't you think that
what's the essence of the PTA? What's the essence of the PTA in the secondary schools? It is to see how parents and the teachers can have can meet each other halfway at the end of the day. Because some of these things are really absurd, honestly. I categorically, it doesn't make sense and it needs to actually change.
All right, there's this story here on the Daily Trust newspaper. Obi to Tinubu, presidency not turn by turn. When I was going through the story, there was this part of it that I found it interesting. Obi was telling the NLC that he was ready to sign a performance agreement based on the retreat that they are having, so that when or if he wins, they can hold him to that agreement. And I want to know, is that, aside the retreat, is that something you think Nigerians can start looking into? When leaders want to come in, you tell them, okay, what is it that you want to offer? Sign this agreement so that they can use it to hold you to account later.
I think in a few ways we've been doing that. There's a scorecard thing that most of the CSOs actually put together based on the campaign promises that most candidates make before they get into office or after they get into office. Most of it are usually evaluated based on what agenda did you put in place, what agenda did you set that, these are what's going to drive your tenure, one. Secondly, it's usually what are your first 100-day promises? Did you achieve them? That's also another thing. Then budget, allocation and cash backing for most of it. These things are done indirectly, but I personally don't think it is realistic to say that you want to sign an agreement, because then every labor union might want to do the same thing. And how much of it can you... I think we should move past the era of you want to solve everything in 4 years. For me, I think it's something that you can discuss, agree on, okay, these are the things that might be a good focus. And it should reflect what the average Nigerian every day wants. It shouldn't just reflect what the members of the labor union want. It should be a national thing, more or less like what Goodluck was trying to do with Confab, that really wasn't that much of a success. So I think if that can be done, it will be easier. Peter Obi is, from the look of things, a well-intentioned person, but I hope and I pray that he has the systems and structures in place to achieve most of what he's actually promising.
All right, well, quite interesting stories here. The lead story also talks about the aviation workers, shutting down airports, over new law. So they are fighting what they call, the banning of unionism, in the aviation sector, and they feel that that's not fair. This law is basically saying that aviation workers are essential workers. So this is likely going to usher us into another crisis yet again, while we were still trying to deal with the issue of aviation fuel in the aviation sector and all that.
You know, I think last week when we discussed, I told you that every day we peel off the aviation sector and we see a new layer of low. it's almost as if that sector is looking for, again, looking for new ways to see how they can frustrate the system. I've not really, I was trying to go through the story earlier this morning on my way down, and I saw that they said they refer to them in the new law as essential workers, which basically relegates them to a very non-important position in their workspace, which I don't think is fair. They have a right to actually protest what they feel like is going to be against them. And if aviation workers go out of their way to shut down the airport, which rarely happens.
You know, it basically means that they will no longer be able to have, there will be no more union.
You see,
unionism is going to be cancelled
which is
by virtue of that law.
Yeah, which is unconstitutional, if you ask me. They cannot do a law should not. That's the new aviation. This thing is a bylaw of some sort. It should not trump the constitution. The constitution gives you a freedom of association. Even gives the Labour Act also does that. So you cannot use one law to actually trump the other. Especially, nothing should surpass the constitution.
You know,
nothing in this.
The aviation workers are lamenting that a public hearing was held on this bill, and that the issue of this part was nobody talked about it during the public hearing. This is according to the aviation workers. But now that it has been passed, it has not yet been signed. Now that it has been passed, they have seen this part in it. So, and the minister is saying that he's not the one that injected this section into the bill. So at what point did this even come up? And should we even be having this at all?
You see, it's that thing about we not reading things traditionally again. It comes back to that thing about Nigerians. We just see a big document, we just want to skim through. We don't take our time, or we don't even pay for the services of people who should actually go through it carefully and ensure that our interest is properly protected. I'm sure that this was an innocent oversight from their part prior and during the public hearing, and now that somebody just noted it. We don't fuck up for you. I think there's something we did not look, and now it has become an issue. But if it's still possible, I think if it's still a possibility, they should find a way to review it and all sit down and agree on how to move forward, because this issue is going to thwart flight. People are not comfortable traveling by road. The government has not done its part enough to ensure that the roads are safe for us to travel through. So if that be the case, then we need to ensure that the alternative that everybody has been trying to use is also not an issue, because then we're empowering
And
the
in any
systems
case, these workers gave the warning last week Thursday that they were going to go on this strike.
I saw that.
Why is it that nothing was done and they allowed it to happen? Because so many people were stranded. In fact, we saw some respondents that spoke to our correspondent said, one particular person said that he has this doctor's appointment once in every 3 months, and it was supposed to be yesterday. He missed his flight, so he could not get that appointment. Now that's what's allowed to happen. They have given another 2 weeks ultimatum.
Let's see how it goes, because I think I remember that on Thursday I was at the airport. I was traveling to Kano to return on Saturday, and there were a lot of delays, and somebody was mentioning it that this might be an offshoot of this labor issue that they're having with the aviation workers, and we're at the airport for a while. But fortunately, my flight was the last flight for the day, so by the time I got into the airport, they were already settling them and everything, and everybody were able to leave on time even. But now that they've given another 14 days ultimatum, let's see. I hope that they can negotiate and meet themselves halfway, because we can't keep having this with ASU and then come back to the aviation sector and then go to another sector. It's just too much. That needs to be addressed.
All right. Now, I want us to look at yet another story on the front page of Daily Trust. And this one is just a story that I'm not able to wrap my head around it. A confession, actually, by someone. He says, I attempted killing my dad 3 times to inherit his money. So that's a confession coming after arrest by the police of that of this boy, and I'm wondering how. And part of the story is that he saw that some of his parents have inherited their, some of his friends have inherited their parents' wealth, and that how they are lavishing it and all that, and so he became also interested, and now he wants to take the life of his father to inherit his own wealth. Where did the idea even come from?
Exactly.
The idea of get rich quick scheme has become a very big thing in this era and time, especially. And it is painful because I think the internet has been a catalyst for it. People often believe what they see or how they see what they see, even if the realities of people are completely different. The realities that you have are different from the realities that I have.
But this particular boy didn't get his from the internet. He saw his friend spending the money he got from inheritance. According to him, his friend's father died, so the boy was given loads of money, according to him, and that the friend now bought a motorcycle and started to enjoy himself. Immediately that happened, he bought rat poison and gave his father. It was just, by sheer luck that the father survived that particular one.
Well, that's sickening. Like, the point there is, we see, and we want to always copy it, forgetting that there are layers and layers of what makes that other person who they are. You know that saying, as they say, the grass is always green on the other side, is actually an irony. It's not always greener. You just think it is. Everybody always thinks somebody else has it better. But that's not the situation. Maybe that's his friend who died. He's going through his own trauma. He didn't wish for his own father to die. He's just dealing the way
and
he knows how to
we're talking about
do.
A 25-year-old boy here.
Exactly. Just barely 25.
Not a teenager anyways. A 25-year-old should be, is an adult.
He should be working.
Right? He should be working. He should be doing something for himself.
But that's the country, that's the world we live in, not just even the country. That's the world we live in. And to see that my motorcycle was the thing that enticed him.
Exactly.
Interesting. We really all have different tastes.
But don't you think the society is playing a huge role in this thing? The society also appears to be worshipping wealth and all of that. So, people around you get to respect you only when they see that you have money.
I think saying that society, when we say things like, the society is contributing, is to assume that the concept of society exists in an abstraction. It doesn't. We all make up a society. There are individuals, there are cultures that makes up what we call a society today. So when we say it's an abstraction like that, it devoids the holding an individual responsible for that action. He had his own role to play for it, and it is utterly wrong, because he's 25. He should know his left from his right. He knows that a right person will kill his father. So he should also know that eating right person should not kill his father. So I think he should face the full wrath of the Lord. He called it for himself, Kawede, honestly.
All right. Well, I think we've had quite a lot to chew this morning, and it's time for us to end the session. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Our guest reviewer has been Suleiman Mukhtar, a public affairs commentator, giving us perspectives on some of the stories on the front page this morning. We'll take a short breather, and then when we return, top of the hour, we'll take a look at some more issues. Please stay with us.
That's great.
As the 2023 elections draw near, remember, evil prospers when good men and women only wish for peace, but never take a step to make peaceful elections happen. Are you a father? Are you a mother? What are you saying to your children as elections approach? Have you warned them not to let themselves be used to cause violence? Have you explained to them what the consequences of electoral violence might be? Do your part to make peaceful elections happen. Talk to your children. Protect them from unscrupulous politicians who want to put them in harm's way, while their own children are comfortable at home, within and outside the country. Let's join hands to make 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NOAA. To every politician, as the campaigns gain momentum and passions begin to rise, remember, the errors of your opponents do not make you a success. Do not run down your opponent and inflame passions to violence between and among your supporters. What counts is what you plan to do for the electorate and how you intend to relieve the sufferings and bring succor. Nigeria is in dire need of patriotic leaders at all levels, leaders who will make national development their priority. Concentrate on telling the electorate what you intend to do when you get into office. Focus on making your vision clear to the electorate. Don't engage in verbal abuses, fake news or speeches. Keep dealing with issues that will bring progress. You win the hearts and minds of the people by being above board, by being civil, patriotic, and showing empathy. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. A message from the National Orientation Agency.
All right, thank you for staying. You're watching Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. It's top of the hour. Let's take a look at some of the headlines this morning. School fence collapses on children playing in Lagos community.
Amid parents' ordeal, Ekwerimadu's daughter begs public for kidney.
Royal Cottage, King Charles III leads procession behind Queen's hearse.
Now let's look at the details. Sonia, the daughter of Ike Ekweremadu, Nigeria's former Deputy Senate President, has made a public appeal for kidney donation. The lawmaker's daughter made the appeal amid the ordeal of her parents who landed in trouble in the quest to save her. In an Instagram post on Monday, Sonia, who is based in the UK, asked members of the public to assist her. Ekweremadu and his wife were arrested in June when they tried to get a kidney donor for Sonia, who is in her mid-20s. Prosecutors had arraigned the couple in court over alleged trafficking and attempt to harvest the organs of an underage. Beatrice, the lawmaker's wife, was later granted bail, while he is currently in custody, pending October when his case will be heard.
Now, at least 2 children were killed when the fence of a school collapsed on them in Amukoko area of Lagos State. The fence of the Covenant Point Academy, located along Ajose Close in Amukoko, collapsed on the children while they were playing on Sunday. One of the victims was said to have died instantly, while the others died moments later. Spokesperson of the Lagos State Police Command, Benjamin Hundeyin, confirmed the incident, describing it as unfortunate. Hundeyin said that 2 suspects had been arrested in connection with the incident.
Now, King Charles III flew to Edinburgh, the capital of Scotland, on Monday to lead a royal procession behind the coffin of his mother to St. Giles Cathedral. The body of Britain's late longest-serving monarch traveled through the heart of Edinburgh, escorted by ceremonial bodyguards brandishing long bows as cannons boomed in the background. The grand spectacle played out in the Scottish capital rather than London because Queen Elizabeth II passed on last week at Balmoral Castle. The body will lie in state on St. Giles Cathedral until Wednesday, when it will be airlifted to London. King Charles III also made his first visit to Parliament as monarch, with MPs and peers offering their condolences to him and the Queen Consort. In his reply to the lawmakers, the king said connections to his darling late mother were all around Parliament, which he described as the living and breathing instrument of the nation's democracy.
All right, now let's take a look at some packages. The National Industrial Court of Nigeria has adjourned to September 16, 2022, the suit filed by the federal government against the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, over industrial action embarked upon by the union about 7 months ago. The federal government approached the court sitting in Abuja, requesting an order for ASU to resume work while the issues in dispute are being addressed by the court. Mardia Umar has more on this.
Speaking to journalists outside the court, counsel to ASU, Falana, berated the federal government for going to court. He said the federal government should stop trying to blackmail ASU, adding that university lecturers have not stopped working.
They are yet to put their house in order. The government has not been able to make a case for the intervention of the court. Hence the basis of the adjournment. Please, we are filing papers. Allow us time. So we are waiting for those papers. Because this is not the first time government had adopted this rather dilatory tactic, which have a way of prolonging strikes. We were here last year when you had the resident doctor strike. It was the same approach. They said they won't be paid. At the end of the day, government had to pay them.
On his part, the counsel to the federal government, Tijani Ghazali, said ASU cannot dictate to the federal government what platform its members are to be paid. He said the agreement reached between the federal government and ASU has been substantially implemented and that details of the agreement will form part of the papers that will be filing before the court.
I believe all of you here are employees of your various organizations. You can't dictate to your organization how you will be paid. Your organization can decide to give you a check, can decide to pay directly into your account. one of their major issues is the issue of payment through either IPPIS or UTAS. We are saying that that cannot be dictated to government. We reserve the right to pay the way we believe is most appropriate in the circumstances. That is just one of the major things. There are so many things that cannot be disclosed.
It is important to note that before the hearing today, the Social, Economic and Rights Accountability Project SERAP and 5 undergraduates sued the federal government on what they described as an unlawful refusal of the federal government to meet the demands of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU. As a matter of fact, they were in court today and they have filed their case, and they might be fighting with the Academic Staff Union of Universities on the next hearing, which is on the 16th of September 2022. Martia Umar, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Thank you, Martia Umar, for that report. Now, Monday, September 12th was the reopening day for most primary and post-primary schools in Benue State. In Makurdi, the state capital, our reporter spoke with parents, teachers, and students who expressed mixed feelings in the face of rising inflation as the new academic session begins. Let's take the report.
September always ushers in a new academic session. With it come new financial challenges as pupils who move to upper classes need new set of books and other accessories. With the present increase in prices of goods and services, the education sector is not spared, as parents confirmed.
But in Benue State, as I'm talking now, it's merely a civil servant state, and workers have not been paid.
It's just finance. We want to register these children for the educational distance, but the finance is the major problem.
There are things to buy for them. The new students, you buy uniform, shoes, that is their sandals and the textbooks and the materials. And where is the resources?
You have to wake up in the morning to prepare the breakfast and the lunch, and you have to drop the kids in school before you go to your own work. So, but as a parent, what do? We must do.
For teachers and school administrators, they expect delayed resumption as well as inconsistent fee payment due to the hard economic realities in the state.
It has not been easy, and some of them still have the belief that school, when they resume, things don't start on time, which is not correct, and for that they have not really been able to allow their works to come, and some of them are not prepared, even though they are still long at home, at least for a whole month, yet they are still not prepared financially to send their children to school. So it has been seriously challenging on their part.
Hard times have actually affected the resumption of students in school because this is first term. The children have enjoyed a long holiday and would be willing to come back, but because of the economic crunch.
For students, they are happy to return to school after the long holiday.
School is everything. Like, I'm tired of staying at home. I want to come to school and learn because there are lots of things to learn in a new class like this. There are lots of things to learn. So the happiness of being in a new class altogether makes me want to be in school.
I'm happy to resume because the learning can continue, and I'm happy with the development of the school and the teachings the school have been providing for us.
With most households depending on private schools for education due to lack of investment in public schools by the government, the education of young Nigerians is now more challenging, as private operators who are striving to stay in business continue to increase fees. This is in addition to the insecurity in some places that has worsened the situation with a disturbing number of kids leaving school due to terrorist attacks.
All right, now as schools across the Federal Capital Territory resume after the long holiday, parents are appealing to school authorities to provide adequate security and also be considerate with tuition and other fees due to hard economic situation in the country. Trust TV's Aisha Salihu, who monitored the resumption of schools within the FCT, spoke with parents on their readiness to send their children back to school. Take a look.
It's the first day of school, and pupils are excited to be back for the new academic session after the long holiday. Prior to the long holiday, schools were abruptly shut down in the Federal Capital Territory due to security concerns. As a prelude to that, parents who are still entertaining fear, however, called on the authorities to ensure the safety of their wards as well as the impartation of quality education.
There's nothing different between when they close the school and what is happening now. Is FCC safe now? It's not safe, but we cannot keep our children there in the house for longer. Like now, the ASU is on strike. It's affecting the family, it's affecting the parents, it's affecting everybody. It's even affecting the children. So if we should keep the children, the secondary school children and primary school at home now, when are they going to go back to school?
The children find it difficult the last time to take their exams and all the rest. The exam that need to carry on for 1 week, they wrote it within 2 days interval. We are still praying, looking forward for our government to improve for the security for the children.
Acknowledging the harsh economic realities, these parents say they struggle to pay tuition fees and other learning materials, and appealed for a flexible payment plan that would be comfortable for both parties.
Every payment is from the parents. When we, as I am now, I went for verification and I was given the list for new intake. It's not easy for me as a parent. It's not easy at all because as I am now, I have like 4 kids. It's not easy for me. To me, I would say the federal government should help the parents. At least they should not increase the payment from the school. Let the payment, let it be stable or a little bit lesser.
We do the one we can do. Privates are better, but it's more expensive that most parents cannot afford. So, but some parents doesn't mind to give their children the best. They can wear anything to make sure that their children go to private school. They are pushing government aside.
The debate about the preservation of the quality of education in public schools continues to give rise to the enrollment of more pupils in private schools, with parents bearing the brunt of that choice vis-a-vis the cost of private education. Aisha Salihu, Trust TV News, Abuja.
All right, thank you so much, Aisha Salihu, for that report. Now to our next discussion on the program. Tukur Mamu, the Kaduna-based publisher, was arrested on last Tuesday by security operatives in Cairo, Egypt, for his alleged involvement in collecting ransom and taking same to terrorists in exchange for kidnapped victims. Now, some of the security sources said beyond his relationship with insurgents in Nigeria, Mamu was also arrested because of his strong ties with a terror group in Sinai area in Egypt. What does Mamu's arrest mean for the fight against insurgency in Nigeria? We have joining us in the studio a security consultant, Stephen Okori, and also via Zoom we have retired Director of the Department of State Services, State Security, rather the DSS, Mr. Mike Ejiofor, joining us to talk about this. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. Always a pleasure to be here.
Yes. And Mike Ejiofor, thank you so much. If you can hear me, let's start with you. And what do we know so far about the allegations against Tukur Mamu?
Well, it's quite unfortunate. For now, the information is sketchy, except for the statement issued by the State Security Service that they should be left alone to do their job. You know, there have been some speculations, some stories being written about his arrest. The much we know, which is the public domain, is that he was arrested in Kano and brought back to Nigeria to answer questions, including his roles, because it was established that a lot of money, army accoutrements, and other exhibits were found in his house. So I think that's the statement made by the SSF, and we have to stand by that. All those speculations in the media, I think the SSS has claimed is distracting and they should be left alone to do their job.
Taking on Mr. Okori. Aside the allegations, how did we lead to the creation of Tukur Mamu? Because Tukur Mamu came into prominence following his involvement in the abduction of the Abuja Kaduna train victims saga, when he began to act like he intervened in the whole matter.
Yeah.
And the question a lot of people are asking is that Tukur Mamu is a citizen like any one of us here.
Yeah.
What led to his creation or his involvement in all of that?
Thank you for having me once again. You see, Tukur Mamu's prominence in this discussion, I want to say, started from, if you recall, when the 28 of them or so, students of the Federal College of Forestry Mechanization were kidnapped in the same Kaduna. That was when Tukur Mamu now, I started hearing about him, because he even went as far as trying to see how to negotiate on behalf of the kidnapped students of that forestry mechanization. But before then, he has close ties with Sheikh Gumi, and we're all aware that Sheikh Gumi was going into the forest to meet with these criminal elements, the bandits, terrorists, to see how to find an amnesty for them, on behalf of them, for the government to grant the amnesty. So with that, he became involved, at some point even went ahead of Sheikh Gumi's way and manner he wanted to go about it, and now appointed himself a self-appointed negotiator, So when this train issue now happened as well, he now brought himself on board to see how to negotiate or mediate on behalf of the victims of the...
You said he brought himself on board, but we do remember that on this show,
yes,
we had some families of the victims who came on to say nobody was talking to them. So was it possible that it was that vacuum that was created that led to, the victims maybe going to him, or as the case may be?
Yeah, I want to believe that there was a discussion going on between the terrorists and Tukur, for the families of the victims to begin to see how to reach out to him to discuss with the bandits on their behalf, And I think the situation he had to key in or catch up, to see how to begin to negotiate on behalf of victims. But you see, it goes beyond that. And that is why I feel that he has failed in trying to do what he got himself involved in. Because they are professionals, they are trained negotiators, And for me, I discovered that he wasn't even trained in that direction, So that's why you see that a lot of things failed in the process. And just the way Mr. Ejiofor said, the DSS or the SSS rather have said that they should allow them do their job, because there were evidence that they intercepted the communication between him and foreign allies, in the area of terrorism and all that, and with some evidence that they have found in his office, like the financial transactions and all that. He should be able to explain how he got those monies, where he sent those monies to, and all that. And some other things that they found in his office and his house as well.
Oh. All right, let me get Mike Ejiofor, being a former DSS director yourself. What are the conventions? Do we have some kind of conventions where individuals can actually come on board and play as negotiators in scenarios such as this, as we have seen or as we've found ourselves, and whether or not Tukur Mamu has breached any?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, just like you said, government all over the world, best practices, don't negotiate with terrorists. So he appointed himself. The government never appointed him. So he appointed himself to be negotiating. But the worrying aspect, is people have been asking, why was he not picked up ever since? because he was not sent by government, he was left alone to be doing what he's doing while being monitored. It might interest you to note that I'll tell you that these negotiators who are not trained in terms of, this kidnap and terrorism, do that for their selfish reasons. In fact, like I was telling you, during my own incident of kidnap, even though I don't want to mention the exact amount, a group of them, the kidnappers, told me that if I'm asked, I should tell the other group that this was how much I was doing. So there's this shortcut between shortchanging between the negotiators and the kidnappers. I think exactly that's what this man did, and it must have been monitored in the process, intercepted before available information was got on him. He took this thing as a personal business, and that's what most of them do. And don't also forget that some of these kidnappers have backings. That is why funding of terrorism cannot stop. Some of them have backings of important personalities, because if you look at some of them who are kidnappers, they don't live well, they don't have, they don't look well, they're in the forest. So they are possibly being sponsored, and I'm sure the State Security Service must have found out this information and as lead and are going about it to know his contacts, his allies, and what have you.
All right, Mr. Ejiofor. The process that led to his arrest, some persons have been wondering why this was a man who was living in Nigeria, going about his businesses, but why did they wait until he traveled before he was arrested? Because a family source confirmed to our correspondent that it was shortly after he boarded the plane to Egypt that the NIA officials arrived at the airport. And when they got to the airport, they found that the plane was already airbound. They now photocopied his data page and then sent it to Egypt to make sure he's intercepted. A lot of people are wondering, why was he not picked up before then?
It depends on the time the information was gotten on his arrest. Possibly he was not wanted as at the time he traveled, but information must have been gotten that this is the activity, maybe through intercept. It's possible, maybe at the airport, he made some contacts. These are possibilities. He made contacts, and when he had boarded, and they now had to wait for him to, when you are traveling, you are normally supposed to make contacts with your foreign partners or allies. So it's possible they didn't want the intercept was made while he was in the aircraft, and they had to ask our allies, because it's not something you just do alone. There must be an international collaboration before he was picked up in Egypt. Egypt, of course, was not his destination. He was going to Saudi Arabia. So that could be responsible for it.
All right, Mr. Okori. Some persons, and those are families of the victims that were abducted, they are raising concerns about the timing. Some of them are saying that maybe he should have been arrested after all the victims have been released. What do you say to that?
Yeah, you see, when security agencies carry out their job or the task that they've been saddled to do, there's a reason why they have to go the way they are going about it. I just want to add up to what Mr. Ejiofor said. You see, perhaps they were waiting to see that he established that communication with the heads of some terrorist organizations he was going to meet in Cairo, because according to the information, he was going to have 1 or 2 meetings with some terrorist groups in Cairo. So perhaps...
But we understand he is going to Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
The Cairo was just...
Yeah, but from the information...
Connecting flight.
Yes, from the information I gathered, that he was going to meet with some heads of certain terrorist groups in Egypt, And I think they waited until they saw that he established that communication, so that they could have evidence to why they were picking him up, you know. So to answer the question about family members wanting him to finish, you see, he's not even doing the proper thing, you know, because there are certain features that comes with a professional negotiator. He has breached that. He has violated those features. For instance, he needed to be very confidential about the transactions going on, you know, between the negotiator, between the terrorists and the family members and all that. You know, he was always on the media, you know, telling Nigerians and the family members what was going on, you know. And he wasn't even emotionally stable. You know, you see that the way he used to talk on TV and all that, he was putting family members more agitated, you know, and all that. And if you discover the DSS tried to establish that he's also a collaborator and a benefactor, you know, because the monies that were being paid for the release of some of the victims, you know, it was established according to what the SSS said, that he partook in some of the monies, which of course a professional negotiator is also supposed to be involved in that. You know, honesty too was relegated, integrity was, these are features of a professional negotiator. Don't forget that when victims are kidnapped, it's a market, you understand, because there's demand and supply. You must be able to agree to the demands of the terrorists for them to supply you your loved ones back, you know. So it's a market. I'm sorry to say, but the human beings now are the commodities, you know. So what we see here are not professional kidnappers, because professional kidnappers, if they kidnap, they see their victims as meal ticket. They are supposed to give you the best of treatment, because they know that whatever investment they are investing in you, it will come back to them in 100-folds based on what they are asking for.
But these ones are not investing, yet they are raking in the money.
That's the problem. That's why I said they are not professional kidnappers.
Well, let me get to Mr. Mike Ejiofor. Now the concern is whether or not this arrest, you know, will jeopardize other efforts to rescue some of those that are still in captivity. For some of the families, you know, relatives of those abducted, Mamu is more like a hero, because he ensured that, you know, their family members were released back to them and all that. So, do we have negotiators, you know, that can play this role? And if we do, then why then did we allow, you know, the likes of Mamu come into play?
Like just my colleague just said, Mamu is not a trained negotiator. He's not one. He's a businessman. If we have professional negotiators engaged, that's the families of the victims, have professional negotiators, and they know how to go about it. But like he said today, Mamu is not a negotiator. He breached all protocols regarding professionalism in negotiation. And so I don't think in any way it's going to jeopardize the process, even though government on its part are not going to get involved in negotiating with terrorists. There must be a way out. The families can reach out to these other people to ensure that there's a safe release of their relations from the captivity. And but the joy there too is that you know, terrorists, they are human beings. They are afraid. Government is making progress in attacks, so they might decide on their own to release these victims. These are possibilities, and I think the remaining victims shortly will be released either through intensified efforts on part of government or engagement of professional negotiators by the families of the victims.
All right, Mr. Ejiofor, so far since the arrest of Mamu, a lot of persons have been been saying that by now he ought to have been charged to court. As a former director of DSS, why do you think he hasn't been charged to court?
You know, investigation is a very delicate process. It's systemic examination of information gathered, to collate them, look at them, and see, so that if you just rush into court without proper investigation, you will not get good results. And don't also forget that the SSS cannot detain you or put you in custody without a court order. So a court order must have been obtained to ensure that time is given to them to conclude the investigation, so you don't rush to court like that.
So as it stands now, he has been in detention for, I think, more than 48 hours now. What's the updates as regards, the permit for him to continuously remain in detention?
That's what I said now. He cannot be kept in custody without a remand order from the competent court of jurisdiction. So the SSS normally applies to the court that they need time to complete their investigation. So whether it takes 4 hours, 28 hours, 48 hours, 1 month, until the investigations are concluded. But it cannot be detained without a court order.
Yeah, I know that yes, you need that court order, but there's a duration usually within which one will be kept in custody, isn't it? Maybe Stephen Okore will check.
That's the point. You see, you cannot be kept for more than 48 hours. That's what the Constitution says. That's what the law says. But I'm telling you now that if the SSS has cause to keep somebody for even a year, it must not be done without a court order. And once that order is backed by a court of competent jurisdiction, it's lawful.
All right.
Just to add to the area why they are keeping him, or they have kept him beyond the required number of hours. If the court order elapses, the SSS can go back and have a renewed order of court to keep him for the number of hours or days that they have gone to apply for. So they cannot be keeping him outside what the law stipulates.
Okay.
Yeah.
But now that he's in custody,
yes,
what's the way forward for the families and for the victims of those still in captivity? Because a lot of families who have spoken to correspondents are worried that, okay, at this point, who do they go to? Because they've been going to him.
You see, it's the responsibility of the government to see how to rescue whoever is held in captivity, So since the government has discovered that what Mamu is doing is for his interest, because the SSS have established that he's benefiting from the proceeds of whatever that family members are paying, So it's not left for the government to begin to see how to go about how to release the remaining victims, by using back channels that the public will not be aware of. There are processes. They will have professional negotiators in Nigeria here. The government can decide to hire their service.
All right. Security operatives told reporters last week that so far the bandits have raked in, and that is the bandits that abducted the Abuja Kaduna train victims, have raked in 2.3 billion already.
Yes.
That's a lot of money in the hand of
Exactly.
bandits.
Yes.
At what point will it stop?
You see, they have raked in that huge amount of money. Just the way Mr. Mike talked about sponsors of these terror groups. You see them, those of them in the forest. They don't worth that amount of money, So you see that, you agree with me that there are sponsors somewhere living amongst us, driving big cars, from living in bogus houses, enjoying their lives, from these monies that they rake. You hear them giving conditions of that they should bring the money in dollars, in foreign currencies. Who gives that order? Somebody somewhere gives that order. So I think the security agency should see how to go beyond these ones that we see in the forest, holding these people hostage. There's somebody somewhere, people somewhere that are living very large on these monies. 2 billion or more is not small money. At the end of the day, when you see that these riffraffs are caught, you hear that perhaps 200,000, 300,000 gets to them at the end of the day. So where does the bulk of the money go? So I think there's more to it, and there's more work that needs to be done by security agencies to see that the sponsors are caught.
All right. Well, thank you so much. If I may just get final thoughts from Mike Ejiofor, who is there virtually joining us. What are your final thoughts on this as regards, deterrent of future occurrences where we see self-appointed negotiators come into play, such as this? How do we make sure that we are in control of things like this?
Well, just like the SS statement said, he must have a day in court, and that will serve as a deterrent to others if eventually is convicted. And I think the best approach to all this is that our security forces should do everything possible to ensure that the kidnap does not even take place to get these people involved. And we can do that by deploying more of technology to see how this will. Like I always said, this issue of the train incident would have been avoided if we had sufficient technology when you see them moving. And then the Air Force, you see, I've always talked about deployment of the aerial attacks from the Air Force, which is what they are doing now. And it's yielding results. We can see every day they talk about bombing of the terrorists and killing some of their leaders. So I think that's the best way to go.
All right. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us on Daybreak and sharing your perspectives on this with us. We appreciate our guest, Stephen Okore, security consultant, and also Mike Ejiofor, retired director of the Department of State Security, DSS. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Well, with that, we'll take a short breather now, and then when we return, we'll take a look at other discussions on the program. Please stay with us. All right, thank you for staying. This is Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja, right here on Trust Television. Now to our second discussion. The National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, said that flood affected 225 communities following heavy and prolonged downpour across 31 local government areas of Kano and Jigawa states from July 2022 to date. Several local government areas and several villages and communities have been affected. We have in the studio a climate change and environmental management expert in the studio, Dr. Dahiru Mohammed, to talk to us about this. Thank you so much, Dr. Dahiru, for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's no longer news. We've seen the havoc that flood is causing in many parts of the country, especially in the northern part of the country. What's your assessment of the response to this? Yes, it has an international dimension, but locally, how are we dealing with it?
Well, I can tell you honestly that the response has been a bit ineffective, and we have been trying this for a long time. Whenever there is a flood or any other disaster, what the government mostly do is to offer relief materials to affect the victims of the circumstance.
Which is more reactive, isn't it?
Of course. And then from the part of the community, we have this habit which is very common in Africa, that we always try to attribute everything to God. We don't tend to look at it from the root and see how we can address it. Flood happen for two reasons mostly. The first one is because the earth is getting warmer, and when there is warmer air, it tends to hold more water vapor, and when there is more water vapor, it rains a lot, and at the same time you have this intense rain, and this is what happened recently. And when there is this intense rain, it finds it so hard. We have seen it in the metropolis in Kano, where so many markets are affected. It's because the drains and sewage cannot take that amount of water. You know, when it rains a lot, so it's not the usual pattern, so it cannot drain it. So, and then before you find it, flood erupt. And then even the recent one in Tega is because, you know, there is this type of flooding we call river flooding. When an intense rain happens, so the river cannot be able to drain it to the sea, and then it bursts its banks, and then the water comes to the cities or the neighboring community.
Doctor, yes, we have seen this floods, and then every year before the rainy season comes, we get this alert from NIMET telling people that floods are coming and all of that. But then we must understand the fact that there's a climate change problem. What, in your view, is Nigeria doing enough about the climate change? Because when you open the pages of newspaper, you see stories about politics, you see stories about other issues, but we don't see lots of stories about climate change. Is Nigeria responding to the climate change situation?
Well, honestly, the response is not that effective, as I said earlier, and then I don't think the country is doing enough. And when you talk about climate change, there is very little to what an individual can do. So it's more about policy making. So the government are expected to come up with strong policy. When you're talking about space flooding, the one that happened in the cities, we're talking about for urban planning. So what are the government doing to make sure that people are not building on waterways? And then if you're talking about this coastal flooding or river flooding, what are we doing to make sure that we are cooling the air? You know, that was the sole reason behind the conference of parties which took place in Paris, you know, the Overhigh Paris, summit. And then the bottom line is, how can we lower the temperature? Because we said it that the earth has increased by almost 1.5 degrees. And we said that if we allow it to reach more than that, that means catastrophe. So all leaders agree that they are going to make their own effort in order to slow this, increase in temperature. And then this has to do with national effort. Each and every country has to offer its own contribution in order to achieve that. That was why President Buhari pledges that Nigeria will plant 25 million trees that very year. And then the question is that where are we now on that project? Luckily enough, I am part of the participants. I have an NGO in Kano, and then the moment I saw the news, I was so happy, and I even applied to the ministry. That very year, I was given 2,000 trees to plant, which is very little considering that in Kano we
But did you plant all 2,000 of them?
We plant all. And then this year alone, we received 120,000, and then we have planted 79,000 of them. And the target is to complete the planting before the end of the rainy season. So I think we need more individual efforts, but the government has the lion's share of all this policy and how to come up with, strong or maybe ways that we make sure that this thing doesn't happen again. And it's far more than just telling people that there will be flooding. If you carefully assess, you see that wherever flooding happens, it always happens more frequently and then more severely. If it happens in this community, you see that the damages that happens last year are not up to the one that happens now. So we need to understand that it is one of the worst natural disasters we are having currently, and we need to tell ourselves the bitter truth that we have to step up in order to get ourselves rid of this.
You talk about climate change as one of the major factors leading to this. What are the other human factors that are contributing to the issues of flood that we are dealing with right now, and how can we deal with them?
Well, I think in general, climate change is caused by human activity. We have been burning fossil fuels, at an alarming rate, and then we have been cutting down trees. We have been doing all sorts of, things that are not favoring the climate. So definitely climate change is caused by human activity.
But I mean, those are things that is almost as if we cannot live without right now, if you take a look at the fact that these maybe the price that the world now have to pay for industrialization, and all that, right? So do we now, close down all the industries? Do we now, what do we do? I know they talk about green energy and the rest. Yes.
But there is a need for us to ensure sustainability. What are we doing today that we can still continue doing it the next day? But we are not doing that. We're not doing that. What is happening is that you find people doing things. That's why we come up with the SDGs. Like, how can we ensure sustainable production and consumption? But is that what we are doing here? We are not doing that. You see, let's take tree planting alone. We know that it's part of the mechanism, of human body, that we take in oxygen and then give out carbon dioxide. Whenever we emit too much carbon dioxide, we need trees in order to get rid of that carbon dioxide. If not, when we allow that carbon dioxide too much in the environment, plus what we produce through fossil fuels, use of airplane, cars, and everything, this carbon dioxide has this binding effect. We have been saying it. So whenever there is sunlight, it tends to trap heat. So even after sunset, the heat stays there. So you have increase in temperature, and this has so many repercussions. That's why you have this melting ice sheet, because there are countries that has this ice. So whenever there is increase in temperature, slight increase, the ice will start to melt into the sea. So it will increase the water quantity. And then even in the presence of extreme heat, the water volume tend to expand. And all these are other causes of flooding, because when the volume expands, then the water will flow.
So I'm talking now on the part of citizens, Nigerians. What can they do? I'm talking drainages. I'm talking building infrastructure that will, ensure that, water finds proper channels to flow. I'm talking, other dumping of wastes, recklessly, and the rest of them. What can we do to encourage that and to promote that?
Well, I think first of all, the government has to ensure that there is proper sensitization of the populace, general populace, so that they can understand how this flooding happens. So it's when they understand, then they can try to give on their own, contribution. Honestly, I live in where I live, I have seen it several times. People would just park their garbage. Whenever there is rainfall, they will just dump it in the waterways, not knowing that it will go unblocked. That's why you always have this space flooding in the city.
Exactly. I'm wondering where the idea came from, that when you throw dump, when you throw waste on waterways, you know, water will automatically just take it away and all that.
It will take
it's more like a tradition.
From the place you are, but you should have at least think that it is going to drop it somewhere.
And block that somewhere.
Yeah, and block that somewhere. And then it will come back to you.
All right. The National Assembly, because of the climate change problem, is planning to host a National Green Summit soon. What do you think they should be looking at so that it doesn't become just a talk shop, you know?
Well,
what specific areas do you think should form that conversation?
Well, honestly, I think they should look at how to, first of all, lower this temperature, because it has this health issue and then it affects the economy. The United Nations said by 2030, 70% of the world population will live and reside in the metropolis, in urban areas. In some states now in Nigeria, take Lagos, Kano, and Abuja, you have more than 60% of the population living within the central area. So we are emitting more CO2, and then we are maybe making the environment so inconducive in a way that we cannot stay there. And then once there is too much hot, it affects your productivity. You easily get tired, and in one way or the other, that affects the economy because you doesn't work much in order to pay your tax. And then we're talking about health-wise. You have this increased incidence of respiratory disease due to low air quality. I'm a medical doctor. In most cases in the hospital, you see a neonate, just 2 days old, 3 days old, coming with respiratory diseases because of low air quality. We need to look at it. How can we improve that? You know, and then we need to ensure that the environment is everyone's responsibility to protect. And this is not something we are willing to leave to the next generation. So let's see what are the things that we are going to do to promote it. And then we can get so many Nigerians' problems can be addressed through this climate change. You're talking about green jobs, which can employ our teeming youth into businesses. You're talking about, you know, apart from green jobs, you're talking about how to establish an enabling environment for them to thrive. Because once there is no enabling environment, you start having issues right there.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We have to end the discussion at this point. Quite a lot really to chew, but time will not permit us to take as much, you know, as we would desire to this morning. So thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak and sharing your perspectives with us. Our guest is Dr. Dahiru Muhammad. He is a climate change and environmental management expert. Join us to talk about how to cope with the issue of flooding in Nigeria. With that, we've come to the end of the program for today. In case you have missed, you can always catch up on all our social media platforms. Don't forget, you can always watch us live as well on YouTube. So if you are not in front of the TV, then you can watch us even on your phone, really. So you do not have to be in the front of the television screen to watch us. So with that, my name is Ayuba Ilya. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Stella Yaji. Join us same time, same station tomorrow. For now, do have a pleasant day.